Hey everyone, my name's Tony D, and welcome to Screenwriters Tips. Today's tip is about California. Should you go to LA? Should you make the move? My own personal experience was in the early 90s. I wasn't out there that long, but it didn't work for me for a lot of different reasons. The main reason being money. I ran out of money pretty quick. There were unexpected expenses. I got scammed out of some money for my car. It was a bit of a nightmare. I wrote a screenplay about it. Anyhow, my advice if you're going to move to LA is you have to understand what you kind of need to function. First, you're going to need a lot of money. I mean, it's a big city. Like any big city, you need to be able to pay a pretty exorbitant rent. The rent's pretty high now in LA. I think you're talking $2,000 or $3,000 at this point. Maybe cheaper if you're in a less desirable neighborhood. But less desirable neighborhoods in LA right now are pretty undesirable. They've got a huge homeless population. And when I was in LA in the early 90s, the homeless guys were, they were there and they were kind of jerks. I've had some positive experiences on the East Coast in New York and Philly with homeless people who are just, they're homeless, but they're not mean. They're nice. They have a shtick. They do a little shtick, maybe give them $1. The guys in LA, I didn't have one nice experience with any of the homeless guys in LA. So keep in mind, you're probably going to move to a cheap area and you'll have to deal with these people. And right now, the homeless situation is pretty bad in LA. The drug situation is in terms of like junkies on the street, there are a lot of them, and there's problems with disease and piles of trash. So you're going to have to research a good place to live in LA or Southern California somewhere. And if you're going to commute, understand commuting's a nightmare in LA. The roads are just turn into parking lots. The highways, and it's really tough. The ideal situation, living-wise in LA, is you have a friend who lives there who, lets you crash on their couch from anywhere 6 months to a year to get yourself established. I heard of people doing that, actors who slept in laundry rooms at their friend's house until, they got things going enough that they could afford their own place. Understand the job situation isn't great. It is and it isn't, because like big cities have more opportunities, but there is a huge sort of wealth disparity in LA. Tends to be a lot of rich people, a lot of poor people, not a lot of middle class people. Although some, they exist. It's just that a lot of middle class have left because it's expensive to live in LA, and the job situation not great. So understand that going into it. In terms of your skills as a screenwriter, you need to be up and rolling. And what I mean by that is you need to be at a skill level that you can deliver if you want to make, the leap. And that means you're going to have to be skilled enough to write a screenplay in 2 weeks, no problem. That any of your projects that you're trying to pitch, you have log lines, you have treatments, you have synopsis, you have it all. You have a screenplay, and are all ready to go. You should have samples ready. You should have all these things ready before you make the move to LA, because it's much easier to do this stuff, when you're not under the gun in LA to make money and survive, than it is, hopefully outside of it in your current situation, whatever that is. For me, I didn't like LA in terms of its nightlife, and it was just too expensive for me, and I'm not really like a nightlife guy. So it just you also can't walk anywhere. You really do need a car. Everywhere is like car, and the meter maids are like ninjas out there. If you're 1 minute over the meter, you have a ticket. So be very aware of that. You need a good working car. And in the state of California, the emissions test is very stringent. So understand I brought my car out there, and I met another guy. Again, this is the early 90s. I met another guy who was working crew who had also come from the East Coast. And he said, yeah, you shouldn't have brought your car. He says it would have been cheaper to buy another car once you're out here, because I had to spend, and I think he said like $2,500 getting a completely new exhaust system so he could continue to drive his car. And at that time, for $2,500 in the early 90s, you could have gotten something that, rolled around. Now, not so much the case anymore, but something to know. If you're thinking about making the move and you're not sure whether or not to bring your car, it's probably a good idea to get a new car. Not new, but another car that's already been out in LA, that's already passed inspection. So hopefully your used car situation could work for you. Or, maybe you can Uber around. I mean, public transportation in the early 90s was definitely not anything. Now there is a subway for part of LA, but public transportation, just public streets in general, you're gonna have to watch out, because the homeless population, again, is pretty big. Pretty big. There's a lot of problems right now. California is dealing with a homeless crisis, the return of typhus, possibly the bubonic plague, and now there's rumors I just heard of leprosy. So understand you're not going to be up in the hills, odds are. God bless you if you are, but and even if you are up in the hills, you still got to come down once in a while. I remember parking near I think it was a Warner Brothers studio, and most studios are like walled compounds, so this was not an exception, and I would try not to park on the lot, because I figured if I could just walk in, it was like, I walked in the middle of the day like I worked there. And this is the early 90s. Now it's much more stringent security. So one time I decided, here's a bunch of parking spaces right outside. I'll just park at a meter. And I parked, and I started to walk in, and a guard looked at me horrified, like, are you going to leave your car there? And I was like, I thought I would. Is it illegal to park there? And he was like, no, it's legal. But he was like implying that I shouldn't expect to see my car in one piece when I came back out. So I ended up moving my car. Anyhow, that's just one of the things you may encounter in LA. And I doubt now that you could walk on too many lots like I did. And quite frankly, walking onto the lots and having a meeting with someone and pitching your ideas, it's fun, but getting anywhere is another story. Because what you find is you end up meeting these guys who have very specific needs. So it's not just like they need a screenplay, or they need a comedy screenplay or a drama screenplay. They need a screenplay for a specific celebrity who is a specific type, and that's it. That's all they're looking at. So if you don't have that, they can't use you. So I think I was in the office of the woman who was like the producer for Cheech Marin, right? So if I didn't have anything for Cheech Marin to star in, what was I going to do? I mean, my stuff was worthless to her. And so meeting her, and as nice as she was, it was a waste of time to pitch, because my stuff wasn't specifically designed for Cheech Marin. And that's the kind of stuff a lot of people were looking for, at least at that time. Now, of course, Hollywood's very woke, so it's not just the projects they're looking for. They're looking for woke projects. They're also looking for woke people to make them. And woke meaning that you either got to be like super social justice warrior and have all that dogma down pat when you walk in there, or, and you had to be a member of a marginalized group so they could point to you and go, ha, see, we hired this person of a marginalized group. Aren't we wonderful people? We're so woke. We're Hollywood. So understand that that's part of it too. And image is everything in LA. So what I came away with when I finally moved back was what I needed to do was make a name for myself in anything else and then go back to LA. And that's part of what I did when I went back in 2008 for a brief time to pitch one of my comic book movies. So then I could be the guy. I wasn't just some schlub pitching everything. I was a guy who had a specific project. Oh, I was this comic guy who was pitching this project. And that got me further than the first time. So you need to have sort of almost like a brand ready to go. And then people can kind of wrap their brain around it, and hopefully you can make some inroads. But understand too, everybody in LA loves to have meetings. Meetings, meetings, meetings. And the meetings go nowhere. And really a lot of the meetings are just to say, oh, I had a meeting with that person. And if he ever becomes successful, I'll be knocking on his door for a chunk of that money. So understand that that's part of the reason they'll just meet with you. And they will waste a tremendous amount of your time sometimes. So, you know, if you're just starting out as a screenwriter, the business is very confusing and tough, and LA is tough. But the upside is, as I said in the previous video, things are being more and more decentralized out of Hollywood. So it's becoming less and less important. So yes, there is a move to LA that can work and still is important, but there's also hope outside of LA. And if you just develop your skills and keep at it, you can get somewhere. You may not get exactly where you think you're going to be, but you will get somewhere if you just keep developing those skills. Understand the movie industry is in LA, and that's where it's always been for the most part. Some of it's in New York, but a lot of it's in LA. You know, another situation for me was that I was going to be working on stuff in New Jersey and then, you know, get the money or get a deal and then move to LA when I had to. And a lot of people do that too. A lot of people don't live in LA. They go to LA when they need to. So that's another situation you can exploit as opposed to moving your entire life there. Anyhow, that's California in a nutshell from me. I hope this tip is useful. Smash like, subscribe. My name is Tony D. Check out the links for the Pineys and Wokistan, the Webcomic Factory, and Superfrat. We'll see you next time.